Ever since I was born, Daddy has been the best father.
You remember when you broke your nose on the stage and your eyes were like a raccoon?
Yeah.
You could do that again,
That was
and then
your
you
fault.
won't have to do makeup.
That was your fault.
She was born under a name so heavy, it could have crushed her. Paris Jackson, daughter of the king of pop, Michael Jackson. But instead of being a shadow of her father's legend, she's become something far more captivating. A living, breathing reinvention of what it means to carry a global legacy. From the outside, you might see the red carpets, the stunning homes, and the head-turning fashion. But beneath the boho chic exterior lies a complex woman who has rebuilt herself time and time again. Each reinvention louder and more fearless than the last. She's not just living in luxury. She's crafting a personal empire built on art, independence, and unapologetic identity. From multi-million-dollar mansions in the hills of Los Angeles to gritty alt-rock ballads, Paris has gone from a masked child at Neverland Ranch to a bold voice challenging the very estate that represents her father's legacy. And while tabloids once tried to define her by last name alone, she's spent the last decade rewriting her own narrative in ink, in melody, and in stone. How does someone born into a $1 billion legacy create her own identity in the glare of such a spotlight? That's the mystery we're about to unpack. Her homes, her cars, her music, and the inner struggles that shaped it all. Stay with us, because Paris Jackson's story isn't just glamorous. It's raw, defiant, and shockingly real. Paris Michael Catherine Jackson was born on April 3, 1998, not in a glittering hospital suite for celebrities, but in the modest Spalding Payne Medical Clinic in Beverly Hills. The name Paris wasn't a random choice. It was the result of a promise between Michael Jackson, his sister LaToya, and close family friend Kathy Hilton, that if any of them had a daughter, she would be named Paris. True to form, Michael fulfilled that pact first. As the only daughter of Michael and his brief, unconventional wife Debbie Rowe, a dermatology nurse, whose agreement gave full custody to Michael, the circumstances of her birth already danced between legend and legal arrangement. Raised in the shadow of Neverland Ranch, Paris's childhood was anything but normal. She lived in a fantasy world filled with zoos, private amusement parks, and enough wealth to rival royalty. But even amidst the magic, there was isolation. Michael famously kept Paris and her brothers hidden from the public eye, often masking their faces during outings, desperate to protect them from the brutal glare of fame. This paradox of lavish living and fierce seclusion would mark Paris's early psyche deeply. She grew up alongside two brothers, Prince and Blanket, sharing not just a bloodline, but the experience of being cloaked in myth. But that fragile sanctuary shattered in 2009, when Michael Jackson suddenly died at the age of 50. Paris was only 11. Her entire world, the father who had protected her, the life behind high gates, crumbled overnight. In one unforgettable moment, standing before the world during her father's public memorial, Paris gripped a microphone and wept, saying, "Daddy has been the best father you could ever imagine, and I just wanted to say I love him so much." The veil was lifted, and the world saw not a celebrity child, but a grieving daughter, and with that, her own journey began. After Michael's death, custody of Paris and her brothers fell to family matriarch Catherine Jackson, with her cousin TJ Jackson later stepping in as co-guardian. Paris, only a tween, was forced to navigate adolescence, while the world dissected every move she made. But instead of retreating, she stepped forward, first cautiously, then boldly. In 2010, she appeared in an emotional interview with Oprah Winfrey, alongside her brothers, speaking for the first time about life without her father. That same year, she joined her brother Prince on stage at the Grammy Awards to accept Michael Jackson's posthumous Lifetime Achievement Award, a moment that merged family pride with profound grief. Determined to create her own experiences, Paris enrolled at the elite Buckley School in Sherman Oaks, California. She didn't hide behind her name. Instead, she leaned into the teenage experience, playing flag football, joining the cheerleading squad, and navigating high school crushes and cafeteria drama like any other girl her age. But ambition stirred early. In 2011, she was cast in a fantasy film, London's Bridge and the Three Keys, adapted from a novel. Though the film was never produced, the move hinted that Paris wasn't just testing the waters, she was preparing to dive in. The same year, she began collaborating with her grandmother Catherine on a documentary titled Remembering Michael, a tribute that stirred controversy for seeking crowdfunding. Fans questioned why the Jackson family, worth hundreds of millions, would ask for donations, and the project was quietly shelved. But one haunting clip from the unreleased footage stands out. Paris softly recalling her father's promise to teach her how to moonwalk, a promise that would forever remain broken. Still, Paris wasn't retreating. She was slowly, purposefully beginning to build her own voice, separate from the echo of her father's. In January 2017, Paris Jackson stepped onto the cover of Rolling Stone magazine and off the sidelines of her father's legacy. It was a striking image, a young woman, pierced, tattooed, and unapologetically herself, finally speaking to the world on her terms. In the interview, she was candid, defiant, and emotionally raw, setting the tone for what would become a whirlwind year of transformation. Just months later, she signed a major modeling contract with IMG Models, catapulting her into the global fashion scene. But Paris wasn't interested in being just a pretty face. That same year, she landed her first TV acting role in Star, a gritty Fox drama that let her dip her toes into the world of television. Then came Gringo in 2018, her big screen debut alongside Charlize Theron and Joel Edgerton. Paris was no longer just Michael's daughter. She was steadily carving her own lane in entertainment. But it wasn't all red carpets and flashing lights. In a move that shocked fans and sparked controversy, she took on the role of Jesus Christ in the indie film Habit. Religious groups protested, the internet exploded, and headlines screamed outrage. But Paris, she called it art. It was a daring stand, one that revealed not just a hunger for creative freedom, but also a willingness to challenge norms, regardless of backlash. At the same time, music was pulling her in. She formed a duo with then-partner Gabriel Glenn called the Soundflowers, debuting with songs like Daisy and In the Blue at intimate venues. Their music was stripped down, soulful and painfully honest, echoing her desire to be known beyond fame. When they released their first EP in June 2020, on the 11th anniversary of her father's death, it felt less like a tribute and more like a rebirth. Paris was no longer experimenting. She was establishing herself as a creative force, one risky project at a time. By 2022, Paris Jackson made headlines not for a film or album, but for the purchase of a $4 million sanctuary nestled in the Hollywood Hills. This was more than just a home. It was a declaration of self. The 960-square-foot architectural marvel, wrapped in canyon views and lush greenery, reflected her dual nature, grounded in bohemian roots, but touched with Hollywood glam. With 3 bedrooms, 2 luxurious bathrooms, and a majestic stone fireplace at its heart, the space served not just as a dwelling, but as a sacred studio for healing, creating, and performing. Floor-to-ceiling windows bathed the rooms in golden LA light, while a wraparound deck opened to the stillness of rustling trees and sweeping vistas. A private movie theater added cinematic flair, while the primary suite, spanning the entire first floor, offered a barefoot retreat, where one could almost hear Paris softly strumming her ukulele, the scent of coffee, and the hum of solitude filling the space. But this wasn't her first retreat. Before Hollywood Hills, she owned a 7-bedroom estate in Topanga Canyon, a bohemian masterpiece bought for $2 million and later sold for $2.3 million. That home, with its observation decks, chef's kitchen, spa-level bathrooms, and a full home theater, was a creative utopia. Solar panels, a 4-car garage, Zen water features, fire pits, and open-concept interiors made it more than a house. It was a spiritual vessel designed without budgetary boundaries. Where most celebrities bought homes for status, Paris curated them like installations in a gallery of her own identity. These weren't just luxury purchases. They were intimate blueprints of a woman refusing to conform, designing spaces that felt as wild, soft, and hauntingly beautiful as the music she makes. While Paris Jackson's homes speak of grounded spirituality and artistic solitude, her cars shout something else entirely: freedom, rebellion, and edge. Her garage isn't filled with the cliché Rolls-Royces or Lambos of the typical celebrity set.
Is sad.
Littered, Rabel. Littered, Lazuli. Littered, Rabel. Rabel. Littered, Rabel. Littered, Littered, Lucia. You ballet gestic solitude. You all Paul. What's the Instead, she's curated a lineup that tells a story. One tire mark at a time. First, there's the Hummer EV, a monster of a vehicle that blends sustainability with unapologetic muscle. With 1,000 horsepower and the ability to hit 60 miles per hour in just 3 seconds. It's a powerhouse cloaked in eco-conscious innovation. For Paris, it represents strength in silence, loud in presence, quiet on the road. Then comes the Jeep Wrangler, a boho rock staple. This is the ride you picture her taking into Topanga Canyon. Hair blowing in the wind, playlist blasting with folk grunge, ukulele in the backseat, barefoot on the dash. Rugged, spiritual, and built for dusty weekend getaways. The Jeep is less a car and more a mobile state of mind. But when the stage calls and the cameras flash, she turns to her custom Sprinter van. Think tour bus vibes, blackout windows, plush interiors, maybe even a hidden recording setup. It's the perfect escape pod for someone who craves privacy in a world obsessed with her name. And then there's the Porsche Boxster, a sleek convertible built for fast drives up Mulholland, where it's just her, the open road, and the hum of introspection. Each car isn't just transportation. It's a chapter of her life in motion. They reflect not excess, but expression. Whether roaring through LA in an electric beast or gliding past sunset cliffs in a convertible, Paris Jackson doesn't just drive. She escapes, she reclaims, and she defines freedom on 4 wheels. Behind the wealth, fame, and red carpet appearances, Paris Jackson carries a darkness that fame could never shield her from. Despite being born into unimaginable privilege, her teenage years spiraled into a storm of pain few could have anticipated. At just 15, she began struggling with inner demons, falling into addiction that escalated to intravenous drug use, enduring a traumatic sexual assault by a stranger, and descending into waves of depression that led to multiple attempts to end her own life. These experiences are referenced not for shock value, but because they underscore the brutal truth: fame did not protect her from trauma. It complicated it. Eventually, her family intervened, sending her to a residential therapy facility in Utah, where she spent her sophomore and junior years of high school. At first, Paris believed this structured, isolated environment saved her. It helped her find balance, regain focus, and heal. But years later, in 2020, she came forward with allegations that the same institution had subjected her and others to abuse, shocking revelations echoed by other survivors from similar schools. This recontextualized her healing not as salvation, but survival. The glamour of her name masked years of self-harm, shame, and loneliness, but it also gave her a platform to speak out and support others. Her music, much like her journey, is drenched in raw vulnerability and lyrical wounds. Songs like Wilted or Let Down don't just entertain, they cry out. Unlike many celebrity children who fade into privilege, Paris chose to confront the world with her scars showing. She speaks openly about mental health, trauma, and the painful duality of being a Jackson, where people see a crown, but rarely the cracks beneath it. Her story is not one of clean, linear recovery, but of ongoing courage, of surviving not despite the spotlight, but sometimes in direct defiance of it. And through it all, Paris never begged for sympathy. She just told her truth, and that in this era is a revolutionary act. If you thought Paris Jackson was content to be a passive heir to the Jackson throne, think again. In July 2025, she made headlines not for fashion or music, but for something far more disruptive, challenging the very estate that manages her father's legacy. In a bold and unexpected legal move, Paris filed an objection to a request from the Michael Jackson estate for attorney payments that she believed lacked transparency. She didn't just ask questions, she demanded accountability. The filing raised concerns about so-called premium fees and unlogged billable hours, suggesting that the very team tasked with protecting her father's empire may have been operating in shadows. Paris insisted the court deny payment until full invoices were made public, a move that caught even seasoned insiders off guard. This wasn't a stunt, it was a signal. A signal that Paris is no longer a silent figure in the legacy machine, but an active voice fighting for what's fair. Even if that means challenging those who carry her father's name on legal documents. But this wasn't the first time Paris stood firm in controversy. From the backlash over her role as Jesus in the film Habit, to criticism surrounding the Jackson family's use of crowdfunding for remembering Michael, Paris has often found herself at the center of public storms. What's different is how she handles them, with defiance and nuance. She doesn't backtrack. She reframes. She doesn't shout to be heard. She speaks plainly, letting the weight of her words carry the impact. She's also become an outspoken advocate for mental health, LGBTQ+ rights, and survivors of abuse, never shying away from telling difficult truths, especially her own. While many expected her to be a passive symbol of nostalgia, Paris has chosen to be an agent of reform, and in doing so, she's proving that legacy isn't something you inherit, it's something you defend, even if that means challenging the very system built to protect it. Paris Jackson's rise as an artist is not the result of a carefully curated marketing plan. It's been messy, real, and thrilling to watch. By 2022, her reinvention was in full bloom. On June 12th, she walked the red carpet at the Tony Awards alongside her brother Prince, honoring MJ the musical. But not as a tribute act. She walked with pride and ownership, a living connection to her father's legacy, and proof that the next generation isn't simply remembering, but reimagining. In the same year, she released her Lost EP, featuring haunting tracks like Breathe Again and Never Going Back Again, exploring themes of emotional recovery and inner strength. Then came the grunge-inspired single Lighthouse, its music video drenched in raw 90s rebellion that paid subtle homage to Nirvana and Kurt Cobain. The song echoed her evolution from indie folk dreamer to rock-influenced rebel. By October, she followed up with Just You, continuing her path of unfiltered vulnerability and textured sound. Then, in September 2024, Paris made her Paris Fashion Week debut, walking for Maison Yoshiki Paris, a luxury brand created by Japanese rock star Yoshiki. On that runway, she wasn't just a model, she was a muse. Her look, her poise, her aura, all told the story of a woman who had transformed pain into performance, identity into image. Her foray into acting remained equally daring, with roles in American Horror Stories and other dark, mysterious series. Paris showcased her ability to embody shadows, not just step out of them. Every project, be it music, fashion, or film, has become a medium for her metamorphosis. She's not trying to be Michael Jackson 2.0, she's crafting something completely her own, unapologetically moody, sometimes controversial, and always evolving. Paris Jackson is no longer a curiosity of fame. She's a cultural force in her own right. One project, one performance, one piercing lyric at a time. When you strip away the headlines, the designer gowns, and the property deeds, you're left with something far more compelling than wealth. Paris Jackson's relentless pursuit of self. As of 2025, she stands not just as the daughter of a music icon, but as a self-made artist, homeowner, activist, and voice for a generation unafraid to confront the shadows of fame. Her estimated net worth of $150 million affords her access to the world's finest. But it's how she uses that access that sets her apart. She's built sanctuaries in Topanga Canyon and the Hollywood Hills not to flaunt status, but to escape it. She drives everything from rugged Jeeps to futuristic EVs, not for show but for soul. She's acted, modeled, sung, and spoken, but always in her own time and always with truth. Whether she's challenging legal powers, strumming a song in solitude, or walking a high-fashion runway, Paris carries a distinct message that legacy is not a prison, it's a canvas, and she's painting hers in broad, imperfect, beautiful strokes. For someone who was introduced to the world behind a veil, Paris Jackson now stands barefaced before it, with scars visible and voice intact. She is proof that identity isn't inherited, it's forged, and in forging hers, she has become something the world never expected. A Jackson who doesn't just echo history, but rewrites it entirely. So now that you've seen inside the life of Paris Jackson, the mansions, the music, the legal battles, the raw truth, what do you think defines her legacy most? Is it her defiance against the estate, her artistic voice, or the quiet luxury lifestyle she's crafted in LA's canyons? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to like this video, hit that subscribe button, and ring the notification bell so you don't miss our next deep dive into the stories behind the stars. This content is for entertainment and educational purposes only. All public figures mentioned are respected, and any speculations are clearly framed as such. Viewer discretion is advised when topics cover sensitive issues such as addiction, trauma, or legal disputes.